Hopefully I don't put myself in any big deficits. You know what? Let me stop this main goal. Let me stop the one thing I'm trying to do to focus on a side quest. I'm now essentially productive 24/7. Barely understand children's content with a huge amount of visual cues with people speaking to you like you're a toddler with a learning deficiency. What did I say at the start of this month? Something about not getting yourself in a big deficit, a big hole that you have to climb out of. Yeah, we have done that a little bit.
Welcome to the Fluency Project, where I attempt to learn Spanish as quickly as possible. In this video, I've documented everything that I did in month number 2. Enjoy.
All right, let's commence month number 2 of the Fluency Project. How quickly can I learn Spanish? Month 1 was a ridiculously good month, like a crazy success. In month 1, in fact, first of all, I'm about to spoil stuff. If you want to watch month number 1, watch that first. Month 1, we went crazy. So we spent 4 hours a day consuming Spanish content. We went from the start of the month being able to barely understand children's content with a huge amount of visual cues with people speaking to you like you're a toddler with a learning deficiency, to being able to understand intermediate level adapted podcasts with no visual cues at all. That's in 4 weeks, which was pretty crazy progress. So what is the plan for this month? Am I going to change anything? No, I'm just going to do the exact same thing as last month. Why would I change something that's worked so well already? So the goal is to get in another 4 hours a day of Spanish content. Now, how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it the exact same way as I did it last time. I don't consume any online entertainment, so all I'm doing is replacing that void of time and easy stimulation with Spanish content. I'm just gonna chuck Spanish content in. Whether I'm cooking food, I'll be watching Spanish content, sitting on the toilet, watching Spanish content, eating my breakfast, watching Spanish content, on the bike, watching Spanish content, pushing my shopping cart around the grocery store, Spanish content, just pumping the content. That is the goal again this month, 4 hours a day. The goal is to get 120 hours again this month. If I can keep up this momentum, if I can keep going at 4 hours a day, I'm going to hit conversational fluency by the end of March next year. So that's exciting. I would love to have that goal. Obviously, there's a lot of work that stands between me and that goal right now. 4 hours a day is a lot of work. The thing I noticed last month with the 4 hours a day is, first of all, you can't miss any days. Like, there's no days that you can consume zero Spanish. That's off the cards. But even if you have a day where you're only consuming 2 hours a day, that's going to add up, because that means I'm going to have to watch 6 hours the next day. It has to get filled up somehow. Like, this time works out on an average. I need 120 hours by the end of the month. So if I'm doing less hours today, it means I'm having to do more tomorrow. So you really can't fall behind. If you get in big deficits in terms of the amount of content consumed, the amount of hours per week, it gets really hard to dig yourself out of that hole. So hopefully I don't put myself in any big deficits. And the goal doesn't change. 4 hours a day is going to be hard. I can't fall behind. That's it. Let's get it done. Month number 2 of the Fluency Project. Let's cram as much Spanish into my brain as possible. Let's get rid of incredibly low ROI activities like scrolling, like video games, like Netflix, all that crap, and replace it with high ROI activities like learning a new language, unlocking 600 million people to talk to, a bunch of locations on the map now unlocked. Sounds good to me. So let's get it done. Month number 2 of the Fluency Project. All right, we are 1 week into month number 2 of the Fluency Project. How did we go this week? This was, by a few hours, our worst week so far on the Fluency Project. So in terms of our total hours this week, it wasn't as good as usual. So we got 21 hours done with this week, which in fairness is 3 hours a day. It's still pretty good. This week was one of those weeks where I had a lot of work to do and I was really in a good flow, and I just thought, I'm not going to stop working on my business so I can sit down and watch Spanish videos. So I just said, all right, if I have to catch up, if I have to do more in other weeks, then I have to do it. But this is just a side quest to me. This isn't a main goal. So let me do as much as I can, but if I have to catch up, I have to catch up. So that's what I did. Still got 3 hours a day done. Still got 21 hours total. So yeah, I still saw gains. So the intermediate content, which I started on at the end of the first month of the Fluency Project, it was one of those things where it's like, should I be watching this? I can understand a bit of it, but I'm not following a lot. By the end of this week, I was like, okay, I can understand, I can follow all of this content pretty well. This is really good. So saw some pretty good gains. It's definitely good because I'm more confident, I'm more comfortable with having videos on, but not being forced to look at it. Because if I'm watching videos and I have to look at it, I have to see the visual cues, I have to see what's going on, then it's a little bit harder to get these huge hours in, especially on weeks like this week where I was just busy. I'm just busy doing stuff. Being able to have this as sort of a peripheral task has been helpful. So for example, first thing in the morning, I'll get up and I have to, get a few things together to eat my breakfast. Between meals, just moving around, cooking food, going places, just being able to have Spanish on sort of in the background has been super helpful because I wouldn't have been able to do that a few weeks ago. I would have needed to physically watch the content. So getting past that point where I can have it as more of a peripheral thing is very helpful. But not the best week. We didn't hit the goal that we set for ourselves. We're currently in a 5-hour deficit. So we need to make up 5 hours in the next 3 weeks to make sure we hit that 120 hours total. We gave ourselves a 2-hour surplus, as in we watched 2 hours more than we were required to last month, which was helpful. But look, not the best week in terms of my standards that I've set for myself and the goal that I've set for myself. Realistically, an incredibly good week for learning language for most people. But yeah, not bad, not the best, didn't hit my goal. So we're going to have to catch up a little bit in the following week. So I will see you next week. It's week number 2. What did I say at the start of this month? Something about not getting yourself in a big deficit, a big hole that you have to climb out of. Yeah, we have done that a little bit. So we fell short of the target again this week. We got 25 hours done. So we were 3 hours short of the total, which doesn't seem like much, but we've now increased our total deficit to 8 hours total. So we're going to have to make up those 8 hours over the next 2 weeks. So for the next 2 weeks, we're going to have to consume 32 hours of Spanish content a week. So it's close to 4.5 hours every single day for the next 2 weeks, which should be okay. Again, another week where I was just really busy with work and I thought I'm not gonna be working on my main goal, the main objective I'm trying to accomplish and say, you know what? Let me stop this main goal. Let me stop the one thing I'm trying to do to focus on a side quest. Like it's not gonna happen. So we got 25 hours done this week. Still incredibly good. 25 hours. It's over 3 hours a day. It's a lot of Spanish content that I've received. I'm now at the point where I can listen to any podcasts at that intermediate level that they're sort of speaking quite slowly and I can understand it completely. I'm going to run into the problem pretty soon, especially on Dreaming Spanish, which is the website I'm currently using, where they just have no intermediate level podcasts left, which is going to be a bit sad. I will say some of the content that I've been watching recently, it's getting a bit boring. I've churned through all the good stuff, so we're kind of left with stuff that's not as interesting, shall we say. This has happened to me last month when I was running through the beginner content, but it's just one of the things I've got to get through. It's if it's going to have to be a little bit more boring, it's going to have to be a little bit more boring. At the end of the day, it's not a bad way of learning a new language. Plus, it is significantly less boring for me considering I'm not consuming all of this online entertainment. I don't have this anchor of something super stimulating and super enjoyable all the time. I'm not scrolling TikTok all day. I'm not watching Netflix shows and then going, you know what? Let me stop watching this Netflix show to watch a Mexican woman talk about her day in life living in Canada, right? That's going to be incredibly boring if I'm watching some mega high budget Netflix show. But because I don't have that anchor, because I don't have all this super high stimulus input all the time, this stuff it's relatively enjoyable. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not the most fun stuff. I enjoy the podcasts, but it's not the best. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I'm learning Spanish. So Next 2 weeks, we're gonna have to get 32 hours in a day. I think we can get that done. We just have to prioritize it a little bit. It's one of those things where if I'm not doing a task that requires 100% of my concentration, I just have to be thinking, why am I not listening to Spanish right now? And that's kind of how it's been. You know, if I'm eating meals, I have to have Spanish in. If I'm cooking, if I'm cleaning, Spanish in. If I'm going to the shop, Spanish in. If I'm commuting somewhere, Spanish in. All of these things, I'm just getting Spanish in. It does mean that I can't really do things like reading books, which I enjoy doing, because that is just time where I could be learning Spanish. And if I'm trying to get 4 hours in of it a day, I just have to be doing it all the time. But I think it's a sacrifice worth making. I used to read a fair bit, quite a lot of books. And the reality is, if you're receiving a huge amount of input, a huge amount of information, fantastic, that's great. But action is what is the catalyst for change. If you acquire a huge amount of information, you can't actually change anything about your life unless you take action. So I found myself consuming a huge amount of information, reading a lot of books, and not doing a lot with it. I found this really great because what I'm doing is mainly action oriented. I'm not amassing a bunch of theory. I'm just doing stuff. I'm putting into practice. And I've found that to be a pretty good thing. I think I've seen more progress doing that than acquiring a bunch of theory. Sure, that helps for when I'm going to take action, to be putting that action into higher leverage opportunities, doing things that are going to benefit me more in the long run. But it's been good for just being more action oriented rather than input information oriented. So anyway, bit of a side tangent there, but 2 weeks left. We have to dial in here because we're in an 8-hour deficit. Still been 2 really good weeks. We've got in, what have we got in? 46 hours of Spanish. So a crazy amount, really, for someone who's trying to learn a new language. But not bad, not my goal. Now, some of you watching this might be thinking, well, you've put in 46 hours of Spanish in 2 weeks. You've done over 3 hours a day. That's pretty good. You should be more happy with yourself. Sure, I'm relatively happy, but the thing is, I set myself a standard. I set myself a target and a goal, and I don't like to go below that standard. If you're someone who's constantly allowing yourself to fall below your standards, then these standards just keep dropping lower and lower and lower. And I think the standards are one of the most important things that you can have, because some days you're going to have motivation, some days you're not. But a lot of the time you fall to the level of your standards. So I need to hold myself at this level where 4 hours a day is what I have to do. I can't go below that. And realistically, these last 2 weeks, yeah, they've been really busy, but I haven't dropped below sort of 2 hours a day. Maybe once, maybe twice, but very rarely will I go below 2 hours a day. So I guess theoretically 2 hours a day is my standard. I will not fall below that, but I want to hold myself to a standard of 4 hours a day. I don't want to be falling below this because I have to do this for 6 months. I have 6 months where I have to do this. And if I'm already slipping below my standards, that's not good. So we got a bit to work on. 2 weeks to go. Hopefully the next time I speak to you, I can say we chipped away at a bit of that deficit. So I'll see you next week. All right, we are in week 3 now. So how did we go? Did we catch up on our lost time? Well, we kind of did. We made it to 31 hours last week. So we cut our time, our deficit down from 8 hours to 5. So pretty decent. It was a 3-hour surplus this week. However, it means that week 4, we need to essentially do close to 5 hours every day, which is a lot of Spanish. However, last week was a really good week. So obviously 31 hours of Spanish in the week. Pretty damn decent. Last week we ran a marathon, so I've noticed that for these longer runs, the runs where I'm running for more than 2 hours, where I don't need to be super locked in and stressed for the whole time, it's a good time for me to pull out the Spanish. So for the first 20 kilometers of that marathon, I had the Spanish podcast in my ears, and I can get a bit more Spanish in because at this point, I kind of need to be spending time listening to Spanish whenever I can. Every moment where my brain isn't 100% focusing on something like I'm doing right now, I'm listening to Spanish. Like pretty much from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm listening to Spanish all day when I don't have to be physically focusing on one task, which is pretty damn intense, but what I've really loved about this over the past, well, it's been nearly 2 months now, is that I'm now essentially productive 24/7. Every waking moment, I'm doing something productive, which is a really nice feeling. And it's pretty crazy to think about because it pretty much means every single moment of every single day, I'm progressing in some way towards my goals. Now, of course, there's times that I'm, not doing anything in particular. I'm with friends and family, although I do see that as moving towards another goal because having strong relationships is valuable and important to me. But I'm generally just moving towards one target or the other all the time, which is pretty damn exciting. And doing things like being able to run marathons and have a Spanish podcast in my ears, it really reminds me of the Limitless movie where Bradley Cooper's running along the river, and he's got French audio in his ears while he's running, and he's on the Limitless pill, right? And it just makes me think, damn, I kind of feel like I've taken the Limitless pill right now and I'm just on it 24/7. It's a good feeling. So obviously next week is going to be a tough week. We're going to have to get in, we're going to have to get in 33 hours. Yeah, 33 hours, which is going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but we're going to have to do it. I thought while we're here, I would run you guys through what I'm actually doing. So I'm using the Dreaming Spanish website. So Dreaming Spanish is essentially a comprehensible input platform. It's kind of like YouTube, but for learning Spanish. So I love this because my housemate actually recently said to me, why don't you try and watch some YouTube videos? Like, I know Mr. Beast does Spanish versions of his videos. So I was like, that's an interesting point. They're probably more enjoyable than what I'm watching right now. So I went on YouTube, and it had been a while since I'd been on YouTube, actually looked at a home feed, and it was just so overwhelming. I was like, nope, no, we're going back to this. So this is my little safe space right here, where I am at least 4 hours a day for the most part. So when you get in here, you basically have a bunch of filters based on the levels that you're at. So right now I'm at the intermediate level. So I started off at this beginner level, but after the first month, I progressed to the intermediate. So I'm watching a bunch of intermediate level videos here. And there's lots of different videos, like there's shorter videos, but there's also podcast style stuff. I've been doing the podcasts more while I'm out doing something and not watching. And other than that, I'm just physically watching. Like, as you can see, a lot of these aren't that interesting. Not a lot of these are really calling out to me. That's partially because I've watched a lot of the ones that have been interesting to me. But one of the things I did recently is I just went on anything and I was on the advanced section. It was actually this series here, the Sapiens series. I'd read the Sapiens book a few months ago and it really interested me. But this is a series where a guy who has a degree in anthropology runs through the Sapiens book itself. It's advanced, so it's a bit above my current level, but I thought, let me check it out. Now, I'm theoretically not supposed to be watching advanced videos based on the amount of input I've received until next year, but I thought, let's just see how far away I am from this. And I wasn't too far out of my comfort zone. I certainly wasn't in my comfort zone, but I was actually following along pretty damn well. So it makes me optimistic about potentially moving to the advanced videos sooner, because I assume these guys that are making the videos, because it's maybe five to 8 people that make all the videos, I assume they actually enjoy making the advanced videos more because they don't have to talk like they're talking to idiots and they can discuss more advanced topics. So they're generally more interesting videos. So hopefully I'll be able to progress there sooner. But the thing I love about this website, by the way, I have no affiliation to this. I just really like the product. So I thought, let me share. This is exactly what I'm using all the time. Is it has this progression thing. So every day that you are watching videos, it's recording. So as you can see here, I've spent 151 minutes learning today out of my target, which is 240. And it logs all of this. And over the month, you can see exactly how many minutes you've done. So I've done 84.1 hours this month. You can see the amount of minutes I put in every day. Now, obviously I have some days where I don't hit my target and then some days where I go way over, but it's a very easy way of tracking everything without me having to actually look at it. And it also shows you what level you are, which I like that. I like the fact that you have some sort of progression-based system. So right now I'm at level 4, which is 300 hours of input. I'm currently at 355. intermediate to advanced. This is 600 hours of input. So I'm still 245 hours away from that, which is at least 2 months. But I reckon we're probably going to be able to watch advanced level content sooner. But I just really like the fact that this has the calendar section where you can see exactly how many hours you get in, because especially for me, when I'm documenting this journey through trying to get specific amounts of time per month, it's very easy for me to log this. So as you can see, the goal last month was 120 hours and we got 120.6. So good. So obviously we have a bit of work to do to finish the month off strong, but this is what I'm using. I'm essentially just watching this all day. I watch the shorter videos when I can physically watch them, and then I try to watch the more podcast style content when I'm out walking or out running or at the grocery store cooking, things like that. But the fact that I feel like I'm productive 24/7, I love that feeling. Obviously, it's very intense right now. I'm very much just in a environment of growth, and there's obviously the growing pains associated with that. But it's been fun, and the progress is super, super noticeable. I mean, the fact that 30 days ago, I would barely be able to understand one of these beginner videos, and now it would bore me to tears, and I'm looking at these advanced videos like this isn't so far away. That's good to see. So next week, we're going to have to fill in that 5-hour deficit. We need 33 hours, and that's all there is to it. I just got to put my head down, watch some more videos, and get through it. So I will see you next week, hopefully with some good news. All right, week 4 plus a few days. The last week of month 2. We were in a 5-hour deficit in terms of our target of 4 hours a day. So how did we go? We had to kick it up a notch. We had to really dig ourselves out of a little bit of a hole that we created for ourselves 2 weeks into this month. And we did it. We got it done. We got 122.5 total hours. You can see here, according to my Dreaming Spanish log, we just went crazy this last week. Like, I'll try and zoom in out here so you can see. We had a few days, for example, this day, 355 minutes. That's like 6 hours nearly. Multiple days where we were absolutely dogging it, trying to get that 4 hours in a day, and we did. We got it done. So I think that puts us in a bit of a surplus, a little 3 hours surplus. That's nice to have. Really good month this month. I mean, the start of the month I was super busy, and the Spanish took a little bit of a back seat. And when I say it took a bit of a back seat, I mean it went from 4 hours to 3 or 3.5. So, not a huge deal, but we really kicked it back. We brought it into gear. And the big thing for this month is that month number 1, the month of September, yes, we didn't have any audio input. We couldn't just listen to Spanish while we were doing whatever we wanted, but we had a huge amount of motivation, a huge amount of momentum. It's month number 1 of a new project. It's all exciting. It's all fun. It's a little bit easier to get stuff done. This month, the month of October, a little bit different. Yes, we can listen to stuff in our ears, but we don't have that excitement. We don't have that motivation. So now it was down to our systems, our structures, our routines to make sure we got this done, because we didn't have that little bit of extra motivation behind us. But we were able to get it done. We were able to get it done, and it was a freaking hard month. I'm not gonna lie. It was difficult because we had a bit of catch up to do, and we had to figure out a way to just get this stuff done, but not have it consume our life, because this is still a side quest for me. It's not a main objective to learn Spanish. It's a nice side quest that I'm doing. So I had to find ways to weave this into my life without just sitting there in front of a screen watching Spanish videos, because I don't want to be spending a huge amount of my day doing that. But what I did is every spare moment that I didn't need 100% of my focus or concentration on anything, I would be listening to Spanish. Every time I was doing some sort of exercise like running and I didn't require a huge amount of extra motivation, I was listening to Spanish. Basically, at any point in the day where I didn't require full focus, I was listening to Spanish. And this made it possible to get this 4 hours a month. And now I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident for the following probably 4 months that we're going to have to put in to get to the point where we've received our 1,000 hours of total input, because it's now part of our systems and our routine. And what I really loved about this month is, I think it was around week 2, I just sat there after quite a long day And I thought, I'm basically productive every single waking moment of the day right now. Having this Spanish that I can just constantly be consuming, constantly be upgrading some level of myself all the time has just been a total game changer. Because having removed all online entertainment, it has been incredible because I have so much focus, so much time, and so much attention back. But being able to channel a bit of this focus and attention into learning the Spanish to fill that void where the online entertainment was occupying before has been absolutely massive. To think that most people are filling this void of time with essentially making their brain impulsive, short-term thinking, give themselves ADHD symptoms, just throwing their time down the drain, doing this nonsense, this garbage stuff like scrolling, like binge watching shows, all this crap, just replacing it with literally learning a language at really, really fast speed has been a super exciting concept for me. And I think part of this has been from my journey of living without online entertainment. The first maybe 5-6 months, it was a process of, okay, I'm getting rid of this stuff, I'm adjusting to this new lifestyle. And then after the 6 months, I sort of realized, oh, I have a lot of time back. I'm actually really focused and concentrated. There's actually lots of things that I can do. And that's when I started adding in these projects, adding in learning the Spanish, adding in running the marathons, and just realizing, whoa, I have a lot of extra potential here. And being able to use it on what I consider pretty high return activities like learning the Spanish has been absolutely massive for me and really exciting. So this was a fantastic month. I mean, we went from a position where how much of a deficit were we in here? We were in an 8-hour deficit. We dug ourselves out of this hole and we're now in a 3-hour surplus, running it 4 hours a day. We've learnt a serious amount of Spanish. I mean, I can now concentrate. I can now listen to intermediate level podcasts with people speaking relatively normally. Maybe it's slowed down a bit. Maybe the language is a bit more basic. But to be able to listen and understand this while I'm, for example, going on a jog, right? Doing a long run. It is just an amazing thing to be able to do, because thinking about my life maybe 8 months ago where I hadn't run more than 10Ks in my entire life, where I could barely understand any Spanish, I was a bit of a bot, to now where I'm running marathons and for the first 20Ks of my marathon, I'm listening to intermediate level Spanish podcasts. It just makes me feel like living without online entertainment has become the real life limitless pill for me. I mean, I see such an unlock in potential. I have so much time back, so much focus and concentration to be able to make these big transformations, these big changes. And I've just loved having the Spanish in there because it feels like I've unlocked a huge amount of mental capacity, mental potential, and being able to channel that into what I would consider quite a high ROI activity like learning a new language, which unlocks huge parts of the map for me. It unlocks a lot of people, a lot of places. It's a very exciting thing for me to be able to allocate mental resources to away from what was originally such low ROI activities like scrolling, like binge watching shows, like gaming, all of this nonsense, towards what I would consider a pretty high ROI activity for me right now. So it's been a really exciting journey so far. Now, I've been talking to some people who know that I'm on this Spanish learning journey, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I haven't heard you speak any Spanish. Like, I don't believe you're making progress. Well, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait. I will say that I have had some small conversations with a friend who speaks a bit of Spanish, and I'm surprised how much I can speak considering I haven't really spoken, but you'll have to wait to see that. It's been a great month. Another, 4 months to go, but I'm very happy with the progress so far. Obviously, 4 hours a day is a huge amount of time. It takes quite a lot of commitment, and whilst there's not going to be some epic montage of me consuming Spanish content, it is one of the more challenging things that I'm doing in my life right now. Being consistent with something 4 hours a day is very tough, because if you miss a day, you now have to catch up. You now not only have to do 4 hours tomorrow, but you have another 4 hours that you haven't done. So it's something that is really testing and challenging my ability to be consistent, which I love, because for me, the trait of consistency is one of the most important traits you can possibly have. So I want to strengthen that as much as possible for myself. But it's been a fantastic month. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope this is maybe inspiring you to get some online entertainment out of your life, get some Spanish or some sort of language learning in there. If you want to learn how to live without online entertainment so you can pursue some of these bigger goals, then you can join my free community. When you join, I'm going to give you a custom dopamine rewiring roadmap completely for free, and I'll run through that with you. If that's interesting to you, I'll leave a link in the description below. Otherwise, there's probably some videos around here, so I will see you in one of those.